All right, Nick and I are going to be chatting about Oasis' upcoming tour announcement. The announcement's already been made. They're going back on tour, and I was thinking about this how right now we only get great albums from 25 years ago. We only get reboots, we only get remakes and rehashing of all that. It does seem quite like we don't get anything new anymore. That's
It's like they're always trying to appeal to nostalgia
well,
to
okay,
get the attention, right?
that was kind of my processing with this. It's like we're all chasing that big high from when we first heard that album, and it still matters. But what? And I get it. Oasis is probably not the great example. They've been broken up for more years than they've been together. But we are still just chasing that stuff that used to be relevant, that stuff that used to be popular.
Now, do you think it's only that, or maybe is there an element of it being really, really difficult to get people to latch on to something new, even if it's really good? Um, and I'm speaking about the idea that like there's plenty of new material that comes out that like
Mm.
is phenomenal. There's like some really great, for example, modern rock bands doing some cool things and some fun things, but just getting like the mass attention on them.
Well, here's my question: Is it because when in my mind I was alive when this album came out? I'm old, so I was alive, and I loved this album, but I didn't love it when it came out, right? I mean, I loved it 15 years later, 10 years later. Um,
Right.
so part of me wonders is like, yes,
Well, even just to kind of bring it to connect it to history a little bit is I saw BB King when he was like 85 years old. He'd been touring for over 60 years,
yeah,
you know. So this isn't like a new phenomenon
no, no, not at
that
all.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But to your point of like, are they just, or to our point, are they just trying to appeal to nostalgia to get some like quick attention, some quick sales?
Yeah.
Like, does the band like BB King? I know he was like he couldn't stop touring. Like that was his. He was just part. That was part of his life.
Wait,
That was
couldn't
his
stop touring it
lifestyle.
because of the money or because of like he needed the okay, so Frankie Valens right now, there's old pop star from the 50s, right? He's still on tour, he's still strutting a little bit on stage, but he literally is in financial woes, so he has to do it.
No, I think for BB King, it wasn't that he had to do it financially. It's just that like that's just what he knew. That was the
Yeah.
lifestyle
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
knew, right? Um, so I don't get the impression that there are a lot of artists like that, though. I don't get the impression that most artists out there like that it's just that's the life that they want to live. That's
Hmm.
that's what they want to be doing when they're 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
I think most people are pretty happy to get their success in their 20s or 30s and then just kind
Coast.
of ride that,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. I mean, and you would like to think that as a band, you'd want to be out there always touring, always writing, always doing new stuff. Where I think the
Right.
difference is with this album is, and where I was trying to make a point earlier and got lost in my own thoughts, is I do think like this album was a part of the culture for a little bit. Like it was a part.
Mm.
It was so. This was a big album.
It was
Um,
like a cultural moment,
yeah,
right?
where I feel like what happens nowadays is, yeah, there's great music, but we're so divided. Like everyone's like, hey, there's 8% of the population that listens to this. There's 4% of the population that listen to this. We have so much. It's going to the cereal aisle. There's 27 versions of Lucky Charms now.
Right.
So we're split just
Right.
by that, just by market.
It's true. It's been so flooded ever, especially since it became affordable for people to do it in
Yeah.
their own houses or their own garages or whatever. Not everyone can publish anything, and there's really no quality checks on it, right?
No.
There's no quality checks. There's very little marketing on most of it, so it's just like it's just put out there, and it's kind of like a YouTube video. Right? It's like puts up a YouTube video, but like how many people are actually pushing it? How many people are marketing it? How many people
Yeah.
are professionally producing it? That's a very
Yeah.
small amount, and I suppose they do get the attention though. Like it's the
Oh, for sure.
yeah, yeah, the well-produced professional productions with the marketing behind them. Yeah, they tend to.
Well, but okay, it reminds me of like Boston early on, the band Boston, not the town.
Yeah.
That guy was recording everything in his basement because he had availability for the equipment, like he had it on him, which was rare back in that day, right? To have a
Very,
home,
very.
somewhat a makeshift home studio, is my understanding. Like they had to re-record a lot of the tracks. Um, and he had the talent to go with it. So any Joe Schmo, and including me, I'm a Joe Schmo, can go to Guitar Center and buy enough equipment to own a recording studio. That doesn't mean you have any quality controls. It doesn't mean you're writing great songs. But one would think
Right.
that through that we would discover more great songs.
Well, maybe. I mean, there'll be people out there who could make music that are very talented that otherwise wouldn't ever get like a contract or a
Yeah.
record deal and won't ever get published. But also, it just means that they're surrounded. You know, for every gem, there's like a mountain
Yeah. Of
of
crap. You can
crap.
say, yeah, yeah.
So it's like how do you find the gem in that?
How do you wade through the shit?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
No, and that's where it's like, for one, I like Oasis. Not all their albums. This album was great. I say this album because I feel like the tour is based off of a 25-year anniversary of What's the
Mhm.
Story, Morning Glory, which is a glorious album. Honestly, don't think there's a bad track on it. There's not a skip in my mind, which is
Wow, I've never listened to the whole album. I'll have to give it a
I've
go.
sent you quite a few songs like 2 years ago when I was like hardcore Oasis fan because I fall in those dips. Like I'm like Oasis is the best shit ever. Where that album, like literally for a couple weeks in a row, couldn't put it down. Like it's just gorgeous. So really, it's probably two culturally stagnation. Um,
Like cultural stagnation.
yeah, that's a better way to say the words that I tried to say. Um, and I think it's tough because, like, okay, so put Oasis against the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones is still releasing new albums. I mean, they've been together as a band forever. But are they culturally relevant?
Right, and so then there's a bit of evidence that nostalgia is not always going to win out, right?
Yeah.
Because if the Rolling Stones releases a new album, who really cares at this
The
point?
diehards, right? But the funny thing is, they'll still pack an arena.
Hmm. Well, it's an event to see them. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I got to see them before you can no longer see them, you know?
I asked Zach this the other day because he goes to quite a few concerts and he doesn't always know. Like if Van Andel, somebody's playing that's somewhat good and his family has tickets, he'll go. He doesn't
Right.
necessarily know the group. He saw Stevie Nicks last week.
Whoa.
Zach saw Stevie, right? His walkaway was that band was fucking phenomenal. The players that she had with her were just great players. So he may not necessarily know the songs, he may not like the style of music, but he enjoyed himself. Now, how many people go to a Stones concert because of that? Just they want to live that experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. So anyway, I remember I don't remember what year it was. It was a while ago now though, but I was in Prague and I saw the Cranberries in concert. And there's like a couple songs, the Cranberries, I like, kind of like probably everyone does.
Yeah.
Mostly the couple big radio hits. But I wasn't a huge fan by any means. I did go to see the Cranberries because it was the Cranberries,
Yep.
and I was like, well, who knows, if I'm going to get how many chances I'll have to do this. And I was actually kind of surprised, like for a legacy, I'll call them like a legacy band. Like they had their moment,
Yep.
and they were still
Yeah, they were
going
big.
from that moment, like
Yep.
the legacy of that moment, kind of. And the venue wasn't anything too special. It was a decent venue, decent sized venue, but man, it was like not nearly as many people as I thought there would be. And again, this is Europe, the Czech Republic, Prague. Like
Yeah.
how many Cranberries fans are actually there compared to the States?
Yeah.
Where they're much more well known, no doubt. But they're doing a world tour, so they must have had enough.
They were huge. The fact that enough people know their name, right? So they're coming to town. Hey, we're gonna go see them. Dude, I saw Collective Soul at a casino 2.5 years ago. I was surprised by the amount of hits they had. Like just song after. I'm like, I know this one. I know this one.
Yeah, Collective Soul is solid.
Well, I didn't know that going. I mean, I like Collective Slow.
Collective Soul.
I do like Collective Slow as well. But again, it was a predominantly older. I mean, I was probably the youngest person there in
Yeah.
my 40s at that time. Um, and so I do wonder if it's a lot of just okay. Look at Hollywood right now. We can only get off of old IPs new movies. We're not getting brand new themes, and when we do, Francis Ford Coppola just released Megapolis, and it's getting dragged because it's a bloated carcass of a movie.
Mm.
And I do wonder if rock and roll is now just bloated carcasses floating around that every once in a while we push them over a little bit and we watch them play.
That's a I mean that's a good point too, in the sense that are they are they still really alive,
Yeah.
right? Because you call them bloated carcasses. Are they still really alive? Are these musicians still like at the top of their game? Are they still going
Yeah.
to come and perform really really well? They're going to do a great show. They're going to be really into it. They're going to be energetic. They're going to be vibing with the crowd. I mean, I a few years back, I think it was 2017, I want to say 2016, 2017. I worked a music festival in a town in the Czech Republic, a big music festival there. I think it's called Rock for People. And the Offspring were one of
Okay.
the headliners, right? Um, and funny enough, I actually bumped into the singer just walking around the festival.
Nice.
I had no idea who he was, but he dressed like not a normal person, you know,
Yeah.
like he didn't have the clothes of like the everyday Joe Schmo walking around. It was like, who are you? Anyway, they were not at the top of their game. The guitar
Yeah.
player was not really nailing his parts. The
Hmm.
singing was not on point. You know, the energy wasn't. It was like it really felt, and I could be wrong. It's
Yeah.
just me reading the situation, but it really felt like they just did it for the paycheck.
Yeah.
That they didn't really want to be there.
Again, which is
Didn't have
fine.
any enthusiasm.
We all do stuff for paychecks, right? We've had that
Yeah,
conversation. So,
yeah,
it goes back to your BB King story. It's like, hey, we're Oasis. We had a very cultural, significant album. We'd like to present that again. Weezer's doing, I think, 20 or 25 years of the Blue album.
mm,
That's another great show that I'd love to go to.
right.
I like some of Weezer for sure. I think the first two albums are great. Pinkerton's phenomenal, and it got dragged forever. I'd go see the Blue album, but here when I go, I would like to see them present the Blue album all the way through, and maybe they're doing that.
Mm,
I like it when bands go, hey, or U2 did that a while back. Hey, we're going to present this album all the way through. I think that's cool because guess what? In the 80s or 90s when that album came out, you damn well know they didn't play it all the way through. They played the three hits off of it, and
right, right, right. Oh, and they were still playing songs from other
oh, for
albums in the
sure,
set.
yeah,
Yeah, I, I I think my personal takeaway of it all would be that as long as the band is going to be engaged, is going
yeah,
to bring an energy and be enthusiastic and like happy to be performing, that's great. Even if they're just doing it for a paycheck, but as long as they bring some energy to the
yeah.
stage and they can play their parts and they can sing their parts, um, that's awesome. I mean, I've seen bands like that, like been around forever and still going, and they do a great show.
Yep.
Big fan of that. But yeah, if you're gonna show up and just drag your feet and not even know your stuff anymore, like I don't know, I can't bring myself to be so on board with that.
No,
It's like showing up to your job and then just like twiddling your thumbs, not doing anything,
Yeah.
and then still getting paid. It's like, well, why are you getting paid if you're not actually doing the job?
Yeah, why would you want to go see a prize fighter that's past his glory? You want to watch him just get the shit kicked out of him?
Well, and even a better analogy would be like a prize fighter who's not even going to like try to win.
Yeah, yeah,
He's just going to be like, throw a couple weak punches here and there. Like, well, I don't know. I guess I should because I am in the
yeah,
ring.
yeah.
But like have no, he's all like, he's got a beer belly. He's out of shape. He's barely got the endurance to make it through one round. Like,
I love this guy, by the way. He's my hero now. I do wonder if it's part because I think we always like to blame the studio. We like to blame the musicians, but we have to also look at like ourselves of being like, if Oasis does tickets and they go on sale and everyone buys them up right away, we're voting with our dollars. Of saying same thing with when Hollywood remakes Star Wars for the 37th time and we still go expecting a good Star Wars movie and we don't get it. I know I'm a nerd or geek, whatever you want to call it, but That's disappointing, right? But we also
Yeah.
put our money in expecting something good, and if we haven't learned by now, like so Offspring, if they had a bad night, maybe they had a bad night, right? But maybe
Right.
that's shit. Seven songs in, you'd like to be or 7 gigs in, you'd like to evaluate as a band and be like, hey, guys, are we really doing our best?
Right.
There,
Right.
there's stories about you too. Even 10 years ago, they would record 10 to 20 years ago, they'd record all their live shows and listen back afterwards. There's commitment to be like, all right, these are the 3 things we messed up on. But that
Yeah.
you hold yourself to that high level, and then day after day, it just becomes it's a mechanism. Like this is how we perform, this is how we play, this is how we run this machine, which is good and bad because sometimes when you run a machine, you lose passion.
It's true. That's true. And there's a flip side to that too. I remember I read up on Motley Crue
Okay.
at one point, and I watched some like interviews and read some stuff. Anyway, they were in their prime in the '80s and arguably early '90s.
Mm-hmm.
But they were a wild bunch, right?
Yeah.
They were party hard. Like they set a whole new bar for what party hard meant. And I remember, I think it was an interview. I think it might have been Nikki Sixx, the bass player and songwriter, and I think the interviewer was like, "Yeah, I saw you guys when I was a kid, this year." And it was just so awesome. It was like
Yeah.
it blew my mind. And Nikki Sixx was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry you saw us then because we were a mess.
Yeah.
We were up on stage. We weren't super tight. We weren't together. We were all
Drunk and high.
high.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's that too. Like they were in their moment. They were in
Yeah.
their cultural moment. They were in their prime, but they were just like drowning in the success because they were these
Yeah.
young guys just doing all the drugs, and being reckless
Yeah.
is all hell. And so their stage performance wasn't, on point, due to that. But and maybe that was their moment though. Like that was, the '80s were the drug, like
For
the
sure.
drug decade,
The
right?
opulence and but the audience was on all those same drugs too, so they're probably like, hell yeah, let's go. Hell yeah, this is a good show.
Yeah, probably
Shit,
true.
I mean, just think of like as an audience member, if you're partaking in all that, you probably walk away going, "This is the best fucking night of my life."
Mm-hmm.
Which again,
Mm-hmm.
then lends itself to be like, "Fuck, I'm now in my 50s and I want to go watch that band again because I had so much fun."
Yeah. But you're not on the cocaine this time.
Yeah, you're now sipping a light beer, and
Yeah.
maybe you took a little bit of an edible before, but not too much because it gives you a little bit of a weed hangover that you can't handle at your 9 to 5. But we were talking a little bit earlier about a young man's game via drinking, but rock and roll is a young man's game too. But I don't know if it has to be. I think there's plenty of bands that have shown. Okay, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, right? I'll continue to use them. They kept on releasing stuff, but it wasn't culturally relevant. Like it just like you get a cutoff point when you're not a part. You're still a part of the culture, but you're almost like, I mean, you're going to Lakers games and living the good life,
Right.
and you have your $50 million mansion.
Yeah.
We're all probably just still chasing something.
And to the point of it's a young man's game, there are exceptions to it. There are exceptions to the rule, not the rule.
Yeah.
But like going back to Rammstein, who I mentioned
Yeah.
previous chats, they didn't get together till the early 30s.
Okay.
And I think it was like to a man they had recently been through breakups or bad relationships. So they had like this energy going in together. And yeah, so they had their moment was throughout their 30s and their 40s, like when they were really, really going strong. And that's much different than we think of now of like the 22-year-old rock star or whatever.
For sure.
And this is actually, as far as modern rock goes, there's a lot of, because of this independent artist thing too, there's a lot of people out there releasing stuff later than like if they were sponsored by the mainstream.
Yeah.
Sponsored by mainstream, they're kind of groomed from like 10 years old or whatever
Hmm.
on, and by the time they're 16, they've got sold out stadium or something,
Yeah.
but like for the independent type artists, yeah, they just kind of, when they get there, they get there,
Yeah.